Two notes. Two different stories. One says she's alive. The other says she's dead. And this week, they stopped lining up. Here's what that means. She's the mother of a Today Show anchor. She was taken from her Tucson home in February. And in the days after she vanished, messages started arriving at newsrooms. Not to the family, to the media. One message said she was scared, but okay. It demanded a fortune in cryptocurrency. Then a second message said something else entirely. That she had already died. For months. The public never knew what those notes said. Reporters were holding the contents back. The family asked them to. But over the past week, that wall broke. The notes came out. And the moment they did, the people who received them started contradicting each other. So tonight, we're not chasing a masked man across a desert. We're doing something harder. We're reading the words he may have left behind. And asking the only question that matters. Which note is telling the truth? Let's start with what we actually know. Because for a long time, the public knew almost nothing. Nancy Guthrie disappeared on February 1st. She was last seen the night before, around 9:45 in the evening. A family member dropped her home after dinner. By the next morning, she was gone. She missed a church service she always watched online. A friend got worried and alerted the family. Her children searched the property for about an hour. Then, around noon, they called the police. Within days, messages began arriving at news outlets. And here's the part most people didn't know. Those notes were not made public. CNN reported this directly. The outlets that received the notes agreed to hold back. Law enforcement asked them to. So did the family. Why? CNN's John Miller laid out the reasoning. If real kidnappers sent future messages, investigators needed a private detail to verify them. You can't authenticate a secret that's already public. There was a second reason too. According to Miller, authorities worried about attention. If people believed she might be dead, they feared the tips would dry up. So the contents stayed quiet. For months. The public saw doorbell footage. A masked man, a backpack, but the words in those notes? Hidden. Then, over the past week, that changed. Outlets, including Airmail, NBC, and ABC, began reporting what the notes actually said. And once that started, it couldn't be stopped. So here's where we stand right now. The most explosive evidence in this case isn't a fingerprint or a strand of hair. It's a set of letters that don't agree with each other. And before we open the first one thing. This channel waited for the verified reporting. We're not guessing what these notes say. We're telling you what named outlets have confirmed. So subscribe and turn on the bell. Because this story is moving by the hour. And when the next note detail drops, you'll hear it here, sourced and straight. Not the loudest version, the confirmed one. Before the notes, there was the footage. Because the words came later. The man came first. On February 10th, the FBI released images, pulled from a camera on Nancy's own property. And what they show is chilling in its calm. A figure approaches the home. He's wearing a mask. He appears to be armed. The FBI gave a description anyone could picture. A male. Average build. Roughly 5'9" to 5'10". And one detail they named out loud. A backpack. A black Ozark Trail hiker pack. 25 liters. A common, store-bought bag. In the footage, he reaches the camera. And he appears to tamper with it. To strike it. To kill the view. The FBI has since described this man as a suspect. Not a witness. Not a passerby. A suspect. And there's a detail about that camera worth pausing on. It was a Nest doorbell. A home device. He went for it directly. Not to the door first. To the camera. That suggests he knew it was there. Before he ever stepped onto that porch. You don't strike a camera you haven't located. You strike one you came expecting to find. And that single behavior is part of why investigators don't think this was random. A stranger fumbles. This man did not. Now layer in a second piece of evidence. Something quiet. Something medical. Nancy Guthrie had a pacemaker, and that device stayed connected to her phone. According to News Nation, that connection dropped around 2:30 in the morning, which suggests the device went out of range. In plain terms, she was moved, taken from the home in those early hours. And there's more. The scene gave up. Reporting indicates blood was found outside the home, and it was confirmed to be Nancy's. So picture the timeline the evidence draws. A masked man at the door in the dead of night. A camera knocked out. Blood on the property. A medical signal going dark around 2:30 a.m. That's the physical spine of this case. It existed before a single note arrived. And it's the thing every note now has to be measured against. Because a letter can claim anything. The scene can only tell you what happened. So hold that image. The man, the mask, the backpack, the blood. Because the first note is about to tell you he wanted money. Open the first note. This is the one that started everything. It arrived early, in the first days after she vanished. And according to multiple outlets, the tone was almost gentle. It said Nancy was safe. It said she was scared, but okay. In other words, alive. But it didn't stop at comfort. It made a demand. The note wanted money, a lot of it. Airmail described an opening demand in the millions. Some reporting points to upwards of $4 million. And the payment wasn't cash. It wasn't a wire transfer. It was cryptocurrency. Bitcoin, specifically. The note included a wallet address, a destination for the money. That detail matters more than it sounds. Because a Bitcoin wallet is a fixed point. It's a string of characters on a public ledger. Once it's written down, it doesn't vanish. So picture the family's position. A note arrives. Their mother is reportedly alive. The price is a fortune in digital currency. And a clock starts ticking. The family answered, in their own way. On February 7th, Savannah Guthrie posted a video. She said the family had received a message, and that they understood. She made a promise on camera, that her family was ready to pay. She called her mother very valuable to them. It was a direct appeal to whoever held that note. A mother, a daughter, a plea, on the record. But here's the thing about that first note. It was only the first. Because days later, a second message came, and it didn't ask for money at all. Now open the second note. This is the one that changes the temperature of the entire case. According to NBC News, 3 people familiar with the matter described it, and the message was devastating. The note indicated Nancy had died, that she passed shortly after she was taken. News Nation's Brian Enton reported a specific phrase from a source. The note said she was, quote, buried with nature now. It suggested her death was not intentional. Now here's the detail that stops investigators cold. According to NBC's sources, the second note contained no apology, and it made no request for payment. Sit with that for a second. A kidnapping is supposed to be about money. You take a person, you demand a ransom. But this note asked for nothing. No money, no exchange, no deal. Just a claim that she was gone. CNN's John Miller pointed to what makes it significant. It came from the same electronic source as the first, the same origin, but a completely different tone. And the family responded to this one too. That February 7th video from Savannah came right on the heels of the second note. We received your message, she said, and we understand. But not every outlet tells the same story. Some early reporting, from Airmail, suggested the second note still offered to return her body, for the same amount. Around $4 million. So already, the accounts diverge. One version says no money was asked. Another says the body was offered for a price. And that's before we even get to TMZ. Because what TMZ says it received doesn't match any of this. Here's where the case cracks open this week. On June 22nd, TMZ founder Harvey Levin posted a video, and he set out to correct the record. Levin said TMZ received a note early on, but the contents were not what others reported. According to Levin, the note TMZ got said Nancy was scared but okay. It made no mention of an apology. And no mention of her death. Think about what that does to the story. NBC's sources describe a death note. Levin describes a she's alive note. Same case, same window, 2 different messages. And Levin went further. He revealed something the public hadn't focused on. TMZ, he said, got a flood of emails from someone claiming to be in contact with the abductors. This person said they knew where Nancy was, and they wanted money for that information, roughly $100,000. Now here's Levin's instinct, in his own words. There was something about those emails, he said. Something that made him believe this person may have actually known the kidnappers. So TMZ took it seriously. According to Levin, TMZ even offered to pay to cover the $100,000 itself. But the FBI declined. They did not pay the emailer, even when the money was on the table. So now you have 3 different threads. A first note that says alive, a second note that says dead, and a separate emailer demanding cash for a location. Are these the same person? Different people? A real abductor? An opportunist circling a famous case? This is the knot investigators are trying to untie. And right here is where most coverage just picks a side. She's dead, or she's alive. Pick one. Move on. We're not going to do that. Because the honest answer is, the notes don't agree, and the people who got them don't agree either. If you want this case told straight, without picking a dramatic answer that isn't proven, subscribe right now. Because the next question is the one that unravels all of it. Were any of these notes actually written by the kidnapper? Because that silence wasn't an accident. It was a strategy. CNN explained it through John Miller. The outlets that received notes held back on purpose. CNN and its Tucson affiliate Cold agreed to wait. The first reason was authentication. Investigators wanted a secret to test against. Imagine a new message arrives next month. How do you know it's from the real kidnapper? You check it against a detail only they would know. But if every detail is already on the news. The second reason was about momentum. According to Miller, authorities feared a public letdown. If people believed she was already gone, they might stop calling in tips. They might decide the case was over. And tips are the lifeblood of a case like this. So the strategy was to keep people engaged, keep them watching, keep them calling. Now here's a technical detail that matters. Cold's news director, Jessica Bobula, has spoken about the notes, and law enforcement told Cold something specific. The 2 notes are believed to come from the same person. They didn't share the exact same IP address, but they appeared to use the same kind of secure server, the kind designed to hide where a message comes from. In plain words, someone covered their tracks. The same way. Twice. That's not the behavior of a random hoaxer firing off one email. That's a pattern, a method, a consistent hand. But there's a twist in all of this now. Because Miller also said something interesting this week. Investigators may believe the revelation could actually help. Releasing the contents now might stir the pot, in his words. It might shake loose a tip that's been sitting silent. One human source. One person who actually knows. That could move this case faster than any lab. So the silence had a purpose. And maybe, so does the noise that's replacing it. But all of it rests on one assumption, that these notes came from someone who was really there. And not everyone is sure that's true. What if the notes are fake? This isn't a wild theory. It's a question coming from inside law enforcement circles. Take retired FBI agent John Iannarelli. This week, he said plainly he's skeptical of the second note. And his reasoning is sharp. If the sender truly had Nancy, why never provide credible information about her location? A real kidnapper has leverage. Proof. They can show you something only they could know. But across all these messages, no one has produced that kind of proof. No verified location. No confirmed detail. Nothing solid. And it's not just one retired agent. At CrimeCon in Las Vegas this spring, a panel of legal and law enforcement voices weighed in. According to Court TV's coverage, the panelists reached a striking agreement. They thought it was unlikely any note was written by the kidnapper. So now flip the whole case over. If the notes are fake, then the Bitcoin demand may mean nothing. The death claim may mean nothing. The buried with nature line may be cruelty, not fact. And these cases attract people like that. A high-profile disappearance, a famous family. It draws opportunists, hoaxers, people chasing reward money. Remember the emailer TMZ described? Someone demanding $100,000 for information. Real source? Or someone exploiting a tragedy? But here's the tension, the counterweight. That secure server detail from Cold doesn't fit a casual hoax, and CNN's reporting says investigators treated the notes as potentially credible communications. So you have 2 serious reads, side by side. Experts who think no kidnapper wrote these, and investigators who didn't dismiss them. Both can't be fully right, and that's exactly why words alone won't crack this. So they keep coming back to the one thing that can't lie: the physical evidence. And that's where the real fight in this case is happening. Set the notes aside for a moment, because under all the paper, there's biology. Inside Nancy's home, investigators recovered evidence, and the most discussed item is a hair. That hair was sent for DNA testing, but the path it took became a scandal of its own. Here's the timeline, confirmed by multiple outlets. The Pima County Sheriff's Department took the lead. They first sent DNA to a private lab in Florida, a lab the county had a contract with. Only later did it reach the FBI's lab, Quantico, Virginia, one of the best in the world. And that delay became a public fight. FBI Director Kash Patel went on Sean Hannity's show. He said his bureau was kept out for the first 4 days. He said the first hours of a disappearance matter most. And he said the DNA should have come to Quantico. According to a CrimeCon panel reported by Court TV, the FBI even sent a plane for the hair, and it still took about 11 weeks for federal agents to get access to that evidence. 11 weeks, on the single most important sample. Patel framed it bluntly. His lab, he said, is better than any private lab. And they didn't get the chance to use it quickly. But the sheriff's department fought back hard. They said an FBI task force member was at the scene night 1. They said coordination with the Bureau began without delay. And they said the Florida lab and Quantico have been working together the whole time. That decisions were made based on operational needs. So who's right? That's still being argued. But here's what the DNA itself has shown so far. According to News Nation, earlier samples either got no hit in the FBI's database or came back mixed, blended with another person's DNA. A mixed sample is hard to read. Multiple people's genetic material in one place. It takes careful work to pull them apart. Then there were the gloves, found about 2 miles away. They looked promising, but the DNA on them led nowhere. It traced to a local restaurant worker, someone with no connection to the case at all. So the forensic picture is real, but unfinished. A hair at Quantico, mixed DNA, Nancy's blood, a glove dead end, and months later, still no public name. Words can lie, DNA can't. But DNA also takes its time. Let's go deeper on that hair, because not all DNA is the same. And the kind you can pull from a hair depends entirely on one thing: the root. A hair with its root attached is gold. The root holds nuclear DNA. Nuclear DNA is the standard. It's what gets matched in criminal databases. It's the kind that can return a single name. But a hair without a root is a different story. A rootless hair usually can't give nuclear DNA, so the easy path closes. What it can still give is mitochondrial DNA, a signature passed down the maternal line. And here's the limit of that. Mitochondrial DNA can't point to one person alone. It can narrow the field. It can confirm a link. It can rule people in or out. But on its own, it rarely says, "This is the man." Now here's where the science gets powerful. There's a technique called investigative genetic genealogy. It's the method that finally caught the Golden State Killer. Here's how it works. Simply, you take an unknown genetic profile. You upload it to consumer ancestry databases. Then you build a family tree backward, toward the source. It doesn't need the suspect in any system. It needs the suspect's relatives, a cousin, an aunt, someone who once spit in a tube. It's slow. It can take months. But it has reached names that nothing else could. A leading genetic genealogist, C.C. Moore, has spoken about the evidence in this case. She made a careful point about that hair. After it's cleaned for contamination, it's unlikely to be part of the mixed sample, which would mean the hair stands on its own. A cleaner read, a clearer path. So the lab work isn't just sitting still. It's grinding through one of the most powerful tools in forensics. And the day it produces a profile is the day a name becomes possible. Here's a debate that splits the experts. How many people were involved? Some analysts have argued for a team, a local person who knew the neighborhood, and a separate mind who handled the money side. It's a clean theory, the hands and the brain. But not everyone agrees. Former FBI agent Jim Clemente offered a different read to News Nation, and his focus was the blood on the front steps. His logic goes like this. If two people had been involved, one of them would have kept full control of Nancy inside. She wouldn't have ended up outside, on the ground. The presence of that blood, in that spot, suggested to him a struggle, a single person managing alone. So Clemente leaned toward one suspect, not a crew. And that single detail reshapes everything. If it's one person, then the masked man on the camera isn't just the muscle. He may be the whole operation. But there's an even bigger question some have raised. What if the motive was never money at all? A former officer named Charles Brewer posted a long analysis questioning the ransom theory. His point was unsettling. A real ransom plot follows through. It negotiates. It tries to collect. But here, the money trail seems to fall apart fast. A demand goes out, then a death note, then silence. If you actually wanted the Bitcoin, why stop the moment the family said they'd pay? So you're left with hard possibilities. A ransom that collapsed, a crime that was never really about money, or notes that were never from the real culprit. This is the honest state of the case. Smart, experienced people are reading the same evidence and reaching different conclusions. That's not a failure. That's what an unsolved case looks like. Sometimes a case turns on what's missing, and sometimes it turns on what isn't. Because in Nancy's home, there were clues in the absence. Reporting indicates she was taken without her phone, and without her medications. Think about what that means for an 84-year-old woman. She needed daily medication. She had a pacemaker. Whoever took her left those behind. Either they didn't know, or they didn't care. And there's another detail that complicates the money theory. According to reporting, cash was reportedly left untouched in the home. Now sit with that. If this was a robbery, you take the cash. If this was purely about money in the moment, you don't walk past it. But this person did. They left money on the table. Literally. So what does that tell us? It suggests the target wasn't the contents of the house. The target was Nancy herself. She was the asset. She was the leverage, not the cash in a drawer. And that fits the ransom theory in one way. You don't grab a person for petty cash when the real demand is millions in Bitcoin. But it deepens the mystery in another way. Because if she was the whole point, and the demand collapsed almost immediately, then what was this really for? Money that was never collected, cash that was never taken, a woman moved without the medication keeping her alive. These are the contradictions investigators live in, a crime that looks like a ransom, and evidence that keeps undercutting the ransom. It's why some experts quietly wonder if money was ever the real motive at all. Here's a question every investigator asks first. Who was close to her? In the early weeks, suspicion can fall anywhere, and the family knew that. But the sheriff addressed it head-on. In a February statement, Sheriff Nanos was clear. The family had been cleared as suspects. All siblings, all spouses. He called them cooperative, gracious, and he called them victims in this case. So the inner family came off the board early. But the circle is wider than family. There's the question that keeps returning in this case. Who had access to that street? The Catalina foothills is an affluent, quiet neighborhood. A stranger stands out there. But certain people don't. A service worker, a delivery driver, someone with a truck and a reason to be there. A leading forensic researcher raised exactly this idea. That the person who took Nancy may have been someone who knew her, or knew of her, someone who understood the neighborhood. And here's the chain of logic. How did anyone connect an 84-year-old woman to a national television anchor? You don't need secret files for that. Savannah Guthrie's life is public. Her family, her roots, all searchable. So someone made the connection. Famous daughter, assumed wealth. And they may have been wrong about the money entirely. But knowing the street is one thing. Being known on the street is another. A service worker is remembered. A truck on the curb. A face at a door. A name on a uniform. Which means somewhere, someone may have seen this person in the ordinary weeks before February 1st and never thought twice about it. Now step back from the crime itself, because the investigation has a second story, and it's about the man running it. Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos has led this case from day one, and he has been under enormous pressure. Some of it is about the case. Critics point to the slow pace, the DNA delays, the lack of a named suspect after months. But some of the pressure has nothing to do with Nancy at all. According to CBS News, Nanos faced perjury allegations from an unrelated lawsuit. In a deposition, he denied being suspended as an officer, back in his early career in El Paso, Texas. But records obtained by CBS News told a different story. They showed he had been suspended, more than once, for infractions that reportedly included unnecessary violence. His attorney pushed back. He said Nanos misunderstood the question, that it referred to a different agency years ago, and that he flagged the mistake himself afterward. Still, the fallout was serious. The union representing his deputies passed a no-confidence vote, and in May, 2 county supervisors moved to remove him. According to Fox News and CBS News, a supervisor motioned to vacate the sheriff's office. But no one seconded the motion, so the move to oust him failed. Instead, the board referred the perjury allegations to the state attorney general's office. One supervisor called Nanos a public safety threat. Another called for handing the case to the feds entirely. And there was one more strange thread. Fox News Digital reported on leaked internal emails. They showed the department had worked with producers of a reality TV show called Desert Law. That cooperation happened in 2025, before Nancy disappeared. Critics still seized on it. Why, they asked, was a department giving TV access when its core job was public safety? Now here's why all of this matters to Nancy's case. Because the leadership of an investigation shapes how an investigation runs. When the person in charge is fighting for his job, when his department is fractured, people ask whether the case gets the focus it needs. Nanos, for his part, has stayed firm. He has said the case remains active. He has said he believes an arrest will come. He told a local station the work moves slowly, but that's slow too. So the case grinds forward, under a cloud that has nothing to do with the crime, and everything to do with who's holding the reins. There's a side of this case people don't talk about enough. What happened to the neighborhood? Because when a famous name attaches to a crime, the world shows up. Tucson became a destination. Memorials grew outside Nancy's home. Banners filled with notes from strangers. But not all the attention was kind. According to USA Today, police had to address complaints in the neighborhood. Streamers and citizen journalists were showing up, some allegedly trespassing. A vlogger was accused of harassing the Guthrie's neighbors. Police attended a homeowners meeting about it. The sheriff told residents patrols had increased, in response to people possibly crossing onto private property. So the family's worst nightmare became other people's content. And the case pulled in big names too. Even Kim Kardashian spoke about it publicly. She expressed disbelief that in 2026, there could be so little public information. That's the strange gravity of a case like this. It draws sympathy and spectacle at the same time. And it raises a real risk. Because noise can bury signal. 50,000 voices guessing online can drown out the one person who actually knows something. The tip that matters isn't a theory in a comment section. It's a specific fact from someone who was there. And that brings us to where this all stands tonight. Through all of this, there's a face the country knows, Savannah Guthrie. And her position is almost impossible to imagine. She's a journalist. Her job is to report the news, and the news became her own mother. In the early weeks, she stepped away from the show. She returned in April. When she came back to Rockefeller Plaza, fans were waiting outside with signs of support. She told the crowd, through tears, she would feel their prayers. And she has co-hosted ever since, showing up, morning after morning, only missing a handful of days. But behind that composure has been agony. In her first interview about it, she spoke with her friend Hoda Kotb, and she was honest about the helplessness. The family, she said, didn't really know anything. She has made plea after plea, that her family cannot be at peace without answers, that someone, somewhere, can still do the right thing. There have also been questions about how hard the family is searching. Reporting has raised whether the family hired private investigators, whether they spent heavily to chase leads of their own. That hasn't been fully confirmed, but it fits everything we've seen. A family not waiting passively, a family pushing, publicly and privately, for an answer. And every time a new note surfaces, They have to absorb it on camera, in front of millions. So when you watch Savannah deliver the morning news, remember what's underneath it. A daughter doing her job, while the worst story in the country is her own. Let's address the question everyone is thinking, carefully and honestly. Is Nancy Guthrie still alive? And the truthful answer tonight is, we do not know. Officially, authorities have not confirmed she has died. The case is classified as active. That matters. It's not a technicality. It means the official door is still open. But it sits next to a harder reality. Several experts who follow this case have voiced a grim view in interviews. They point to her age, her medication, her pacemaker, to the early hour, to the conditions. Some have described the effort, bluntly, as having shifted toward a recovery, not a rescue. But here's the crucial distinction. That is opinion, professional opinion. It is not a finding, it is not proof. And the family clings to that gap on purpose. Because without a body, without a confirmed location, without forensic certainty, no one can tell them their mother is gone. So they keep asking, they keep paying, they keep pleading, and the investigators keep working the active file. This is the cruelty of a case like this. The second note claims she died. Experts lean toward fearing the worst, and yet nothing has been confirmed. So the family lives in the space between a note they can't trust, and a truth no one can prove. That uncertainty is its own kind of weight, and it's the weight they carry tonight. So bring it all the way to right now. This week the notes went public, and the family had to live through that, again. On June 23rd, on the Today Show, Savannah Guthrie spoke after a report on the second note. She didn't argue the details. She made a plea. She told viewers her family needs help, that no matter how hard she tries to smile each morning, this was a moment to ask for it. And she has asked before. Months ago, she addressed whoever might know something. It is never too late, she said, to do the right thing. The reward is still there. More than $1.2 million combined. $1 million of it from the family. And it's still unclaimed. So think about what these notes really did. They didn't give the family peace. They gave them two opposite stories, alive, dead, and no way to be sure. Every new message forces the same brutal choice. Is this someone who has her? Someone who had her? Or someone exploiting the worst moment of their lives? That's the weight Savannah carries on camera every morning. And here's where the case truly stands tonight. No suspect has been publicly named. Authorities have not confirmed that Nancy has died. The case is officially active. Let's lay the threads out, one by one. Thread 1. The man. A masked figure. Average build. 5'9" to 5'10". A black Ozark Trail backpack. On camera. Called a suspect. Thread 2. The science. A hair at Quantico. Mixed DNA still being separated. A genetic genealogy process that has cracked cases before. Thread 3. The notes. One says alive, one says dead, and the outlet that got one of them says it never mentioned death at all. Thread 4. The doubt. Experienced agents questioning whether a kidnapper wrote any of it. Thread 5. The money that wasn't taken, cash left behind, a demand never collected, a motive that keeps slipping out of focus. 5 threads, none of them closed. And there are these notes at the center of it all. Contradicting each other, doubted by experts, still not proven to come from whoever took her. So think about what they really did. They didn't give the family peace. They gave them two opposite stories. Alive, dead, and no way to be sure. Every new message forces the same brutal choice. Is this someone who has her? Someone who had her? Or someone exploiting the worst moment of their lives? That's the weight Savannah carries on camera every morning. This week, the notes went public, and the family had to live through that, again. On June 23rd, on the Today Show, Savannah Guthrie spoke after a report on the second note. She didn't argue the details. She made a plea. She told viewers her family needs help, that no matter how hard she tries to smile each morning, this was a moment to ask for it. And she has asked before. Months ago, she addressed whoever might know something. It is never too late, she said, to do the right thing. The reward is still there. More than $1.2 million combined, $1 million of it from the family. And it's still unclaimed. Two trails. The words and the evidence. The words are fighting each other. The evidence is taking its time. But it only takes one. One lab result that names a profile. Or one person who finally picks up the phone. And the experts keep saying the same thing. The break in this case may not come from a machine. It may come from a person. Someone who knows that man on the footage. Someone who saw a truck on that street. Someone who's been carrying a suspicion for months. So here's the ask, and it's a real one. If you followed this case, if you live near Tucson, if anything about these notes or that masked man connects to a person you actually know, the tip lines are open. 1-800-CALL-FBI or the Pima County Sheriff's Department. You can stay anonymous. And subscribe to this channel before you go. Not for drama, for the truth, as it's confirmed. When the next real detail lands, we'll bring it to you sourced. Because two notes can't both be right. One of them is a lie. And the day we learn which, you'll hear it here first.